Well, I have been doing some testing on ESP32 boards in ESPHome for a project that I've been working on, and I figured I'd share some of the data with you. And look, if you're into any sort of embedded design, this sort of stuff might be interesting to you. So what we've got is I have tested 6 different boards to look at their power consumption under a few different testing constraints, like looking at stuff like inrush current, how much power they draw without Wi-Fi, under heavy Wi-Fi loads and deep sleep, stuff like that. So I've tried to get a pretty good coverage of the different module types and implementations of these things. So the first 2 boards, I've got 2 feathers, and so these are from Adafruit. I've got the original Huzzah32, which is a basic old school ESP32 WROOM module, and then I've got the version 2, and this uses the ESP32 Pico Mini package, so just a little bit different design. I think same cores maybe, but a little different package. I've also got just a generic ESP32 dev board. Again, this is going to be using the WROOM module. And so that'll be a good comparison between this and the Feather to see how similar they are. And then we can compare the regular Feather versus the version 2 to see what changed there. I've got a couple of Seed Studio Xiaos. I've got a C3 and an S3. And then I've got another C3 module, which is on one of these Supermini boards. And so I figured that would be a good check to see how the C3 does in the Xiao implementation versus one of these Superminis. So I'll first show you how I've been doing the test. So I'll run a demo, and let me see, I'll use the version 2 Feather board for that. And so the tool I'm using is a Nordic Power Profiler Kit version 2. Here's the software. It's got really high quality kind of capture for power usage. It runs at like 100,000 samples per second. You can see this is one of the traces. And I've made my own little script in ESPHome that I can trigger some stuff on the board on a timer, and you'll see this trace kind of be replicated more or less whenever I run it here. Okay, so the way the trace goes, we are going to hit start. We are going to enable the power so I can see the Inrush Current spike. Then I come over here and I'm going to install the firmware again in an OTA so that I can see what happens with a file upload with real data. And here that is about to start coming in right there. And then once this finishes, I'm going to run the script that the firmware is built for. And there's the button. And so it enters an idle state with no Wi-Fi, pretty much nothing going on. Then you'll see it start to bump up a little bit where I start up just a generic kind of CPU workload to see, how much more power it uses whenever the CPU is getting used a bit. And there that is. Now, after a while, this thing is then going to fire the Wi-Fi up, and then it's just going to start spamming a workload in there. Okay, so there, now we're about to hit the Wi-Fi spam workload. And again, it's a little bit of a different test. This is a real file upload. This is just a bunch of requests that don't go anywhere. Okay, we've got a little wait period. Wi-Fi boots up, it turns back off, and now we're going to enter deep sleep right about here. Okay, and now we're in deep sleep. Once this finishes, it boots back up. That's when I stop everything. Okay, it's booted back up, so I hit stop, and now I can save this trace. And again, it's 100,000 samples a second, so there's really high level of detail in here. If I zoom in, you can see just how detailed this data is. So this tool from Nordic allows me to measure average current. So the Adafruit Feather V2 is exceptionally power efficient for a dev board in deep sleep. Here you can see it pulls 20.5 microamps on average, and this is kind of the power this tool allows me to do average power testing and see spikes and all kinds of stuff. But it only allows me to look at one thing at a time. Whenever I want to compare things, I can't use this tool. But this is how the tests are run so that whenever I go through it, you can kind of visualize what the hell was going on at that point. And so here's a little environment that I've put together. This is with Jupyter Notebook, and it's basically some Python scripts, some visualizations. And so I've got all the traces loaded in here and more or less lined up with the automated tests that I can do some quick comparisons. So I just figured I'd walk through this and give you a general overview of kind of what came out with these different boards. So let me pull in the 5-volt traces. And so here we've got all 6 boards, they're 5-volt traces. And what do we notice right out the gate is that the generic old school ESP32 board used the most power. It's this red up here. And so you can see during like its upload, it used a ton of power here. So if I zoom in on that, refresh, you'll see it was pulling well over 500 milliamps in spike. Yeah, right about there. There's a 576 milliamp trace, which is pretty massive on a dev board. So it's not a very power efficient board. Now, the exact same module is used on the old Huzzah32. Let me turn those both on. And so here you can see the difference in these two boards. So the green trace with this Huzzah32 versus the red trace. You know, if I look at those two boards, during heavy Wi-Fi use, the Adafruit implementation, whether it's the voltage regulators they're using or maybe there's other stuff, you know, causing current burn on that dev board, but you can just see during the heavy Wi-Fi workloads, it's just really slamming the current through there. During the CPU workloads, it's using a little bit more, but it's not dramatic. It's mostly whatever's going on with their Wi-Fi implementation seems to really be sucking a lot of juice. Now, what about the other boards? We can look at the C3s versus each other. And so what I found here is that the Supermini uses very little power on the Wi-Fi. However, it also has really, really bad Wi-Fi. There's a lot of stuff on these Superminis that they just have really poor reception. There's even people that have gone to making their own little wire antennas. Now, on the C3, it's the Xiao version, and that has an external antenna, and that thing tends to get very, very good Wi-Fi reception. The S3 version also had very good Wi-Fi reception. But here you can see during the upload, the firmware upload, that the Supermini just didn't have very high current draw, 210, 215 milliamps, whereas the seed version, the Xiao C3, was pulling up over 300 milliamps in little bursts. The average power was higher too, and I don't know if there's some interaction with getting better reception allows you to pull more power, because these two boards should use the same like ESP32 chip. So something either about the implementation of the antenna on the Supermini or just the fact that it cannot get high signal strength means it's not using much power, but that corresponds to really poor Wi-Fi performance is what I found. Now, once you get into the actual workloads, like what did they look like whenever you're burning CPU, there really wasn't that much difference. So here they're so close that you can't hardly tell the difference. So there's not really much difference in the two chips that they have. It's something about just the Wi-Fi themselves. Another comparison we could do is on the Xiao C3 versus S3. And here basically all across the board, the S3 mostly uses more power. You can see during the Wi-Fi upload that it's peaking at higher power levels. It has higher power draw on average. During the CPU workloads, it uses a little bit more power, especially whenever I kick in the extra workload. So here's one of the big weird differences between these two boards. You'll see the C3 down here is this purple trace, and then the red trace is the S3 Xiao. And so in deep sleep, there's just weird stuff happening on both of these boards. The C3 does use a little bit more power, but it also doesn't have big spikes. The S3 tends to use less power, but it's got big spikes, and you can see it's almost like there's some sort of capacitor charging that's happening down here. Very low power draw, but some weird oscillation with these big ticks that's happening. Now, the other thing we can look at is the new Feather versus the old one. And in general, the new Feather is more power efficient. You can see it is the blue trace versus the green trace with the old version. So if I look through the Wi-Fi signal traces, here you'll see see that the old Huzzah does tend to just have higher burst. It also has a higher average power level. If I look at the CPU work levels, it's the same story. It just uses a little bit more power, but here the Feather V2 did not have worse performance. It performed really well as far as the Wi-Fi signal, so it just looks like it's more efficient. I'll also point out that that Feather V2 is extremely good at low deep sleep current. If I go into the deep sleep section here and I look at these and I scale them appropriately, this red trace, that's the old Huzzah, the original. It is terrible for battery life in deep sleep. Here you can see it's running like 6.5 milliamps. So it was really terrible in deep sleep. And down here, you can barely even see it, is the Feather V2. So even if I zoom in, you just can't hardly see this trace down at the bottom because it's somewhere around 20 to 25 microamps of current. And so Adafruit did a really, really good job on that board, really maximizing its battery life in deep sleep. I would say it's probably the best easily obtainable dev board if you're going to build something that's going to spend a lot of time in deep sleep. It's not the cheapest, and the Xiaos do compare pretty well. So if I pull in the C3 and the S3, you'll see that, yeah, the C3 does pull a little bit more power. The S3 is ever so slightly higher, but they're both pretty comparable as far as the boards that have LiPo on them. Those Xiaos are pretty good, especially because they're so freaking cheap. The Adafruit, though, is technically, it is better, but it's a more expensive board and it's bigger, so there are some trade-offs. Now, as far as testing at different voltage levels, it doesn't have a dramatic difference. So here I've got like the Feather V2 at 5 volt, 4 volt, and 3.3 volt input. There's not a huge difference in current draw. You know, generally speaking, you get a little higher current draw at a lower voltage because it tends to be more of a constant power draw thing. And so like if I come in here and I look at, you know, kind of the idle power traces, you can see in general that the blue trace is kind of on top, and that's the 3.3 volt, and then the green trace is a little lower than the other two, and that's the 5 volt, but it's not a dramatic difference. So as far as like, does it matter what voltage you run on? Typically you use a little bit more current at a lower voltage. However, there's other things to kind of consider. One of the things that I've noticed is that the deep sleep current on these, you would think would kind of all level out so that they use the same power. I actually thought whenever I did this testing that if I looked at the 3.3 volt, it should have lower deep sleep current draw. That's what I thought. And the reason I thought that is because I didn't think you'd lose anything for the voltage regulator, because the voltage regulator does have some current draw just to do the actual voltage drop. So I thought, well, if you put in 5 or 4 volts, that, you know, voltage regulator has to drop some power to get that voltage down, and that would burn some current. And what I actually found is that it's sort of true. And so if you look, the 5 volt does use more power in deep sleep compared to the 4 volt, but up here's the 3.3 volts. So I don't know what the deal is, if there's something on the 3.3 volt rail that is like backfeeding into stuff. But this was pretty consistent. If I look at basically any board that has battery input using the 3.3 volt rail and actually just giving it 3.3 volts, uses more power than running through the battery input. So I don't know if maybe the battery charging chip is doing just a super effective job at blocking leakage into other stuff. Like I wouldn't think so, because the 3.3 volt rail comes out of that, but whatever's happening is kind of odd. I see just much, much higher power draw just giving the chip 3.3 volts with the way they're set up on these dev boards. So that was kind of surprising to me. So the last thing I'm going to look at is Inrush Current. And Inrush Current, it plots a little differently on this. So to do this, I'm going to zero everything out. So here's kind of the initial plot. So Inrush Current, whenever you boot a device up from nothing, power it on, how much power is it going to draw just to get everything up and running? And pretty much what I saw here is that the newer version Feather board, so it's right here, had the highest kind of instantaneous inrush. So at 5 volts, it's 434 milliamps. And I ran a few different tests. On battery, if you put this thing on battery in there, you will see an even bigger voltage spike. So it's up around 580, 582 milliamps of inrush current whenever you flick this thing, power on from battery, which is pretty steep, I thought. At 5 volt, it's not nearly as bad, and at 3.3 volts, it wasn't quite as bad, although it was still pretty high. So I don't know what's going on if they've got some weird capacitors. The reason I say that is that comparatively, if you look at the older version, it's pulling about 409 at 5 volts, and on 4 volts, a little bit more, 429. And if you look at a generic ESP32 dev board at 5 volts, it's not really doing much anything, 214. The Xiaos and the Supermini were all fairly good on inrush current, so the Supermini doesn't pull much at all, 261. And then the Seed Studio stuff has very, very low kind of inrush current. So the C3 down here at like 160, and then the S3 was tiny. Way down here, you can see it at 46. If I zoom in on that, you'll see very, very low inrush current on that S3 version. So I don't know like what's going on with that. They've got some sort of soft start circuitry that they've got maybe, on those boards, but pretty interesting overall on this stuff. So that's kind of it. I could keep digging into every aspect that I tested and checked, but I've got a little summary table, and I will put this probably in the description of the video, probably as like a CSV style, format. That way you can copy and paste it into any spreadsheet. And it's just everything that I kind of captured during these tests in aggregate. I'm not going to upload all the trace data because seriously, each one of those traces is like 200 and something megabytes. I wouldn't spend too much focus on the Wi-Fi signal because a lot of that does depend on the orientation. For the most part, all the dev boards did pretty good except for the Supermini. It notably has really poor Wi-Fi reception. The Xiaos had better than average Wi-Fi reception, and then the Adafruits and the generic dev board were pretty good. I would say the Adafruits overall seem to have a little bit better Wi-Fi signal. My overall conclusions are, if you need a good dev board, the ESP32-C3 is a really, really good little processor. It's single core. It does have some trade-offs. And so if you can get away with only needing a single core, if you don't need any of the hardware features that it lacks, like it doesn't have a hardware frequency counter on board and stuff like that, then it's a really good device. And the Xiao boards are really well designed. They're tiny, they have great Wi-Fi signal, and they're pretty efficient in deep sleep. The Adafruit boards are really high quality. I wouldn't waste your money on the older version. I would get a V2. It's not cheap, but it is probably the most efficient, kind of easily available board in deep sleep, and it's more efficient overall. And so it's a really good board also. So those are kind of my takeaways as far as looking at all the power testing. And so for me personally, I will never buy any more of these Superminis. I've had problems programming them. Their Wi-Fi reception is terrible. They're not very efficient. They don't have battery inputs. There's just a lot of problems. I will probably also not ever buy very many generic ESP32 dev boards because, again, they are not very power efficient and they're not that great at anything. Their only advantage is that they're cheap, but the Xiaos are just as cheap for the most part and perform a lot better. Now, you don't get as many pins, but most of my implementations don't need that many pins. So I probably won't use any of these because most of my stuff I'm going to want it to run on battery anyway, and all of these Adafruit and Seed Studio boards have battery inputs. So that's going to wrap this up. If you've got any questions or comments or feedback, if you know anything that's going on with any of these boards that I pointed out, that you're like, hey, here's what's up with that, please let me know in a comment. I'm first time doing all this stuff, so I'm still learning kind of some of the quirks of the actual, micro power utilization of these boards. And Other than that, as always, I appreciate your time.